So, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us. And this afternoon, we have a very interesting and much needed topic, something that I think all of us can take benefit from, which is on the core strategies for dealing with anxiety and stress. And I can recognize many of your names. So I know a lot of you who have logged on already are familiar with the Brahma Kumaris and with the type of services that we offer. So I'm not going to take up too much time introducing you to the organization, but just to sort of emphasize one aspect, which is that the Brahma Kumaris is actually here to support individuals in our community, our own friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, contacts, and even amongst ourselves, to really just empower ourselves from a very specific angle. And the angle that we take here at the Brahma Kumaris is really going on that inward journey, and connecting to an inner sense of identity, learning how to really use the mind in a very, very different way, which we call meditation, to really start to create that stable sense of safety, security, inner calm that we're all looking for. Especially whilst actually engaging in the world during our regular actions and interactions out there. Because that's when the anxiety and stress levels actually, increase. So that's actually the time to practice these type of things. And today's program is expanding on that concept a little bit further, because apart from just regular practice of meditation and reflection and going on the inward journey, there are other very beautiful aspects which are complementary and all contribute towards this endeavor to be able to manage stress and anxiety in a better way. And we've chosen 4 main categories or 4 core strategies by which to actually really soothe and calm the self, regulate our system, settle ourselves down. And a lot of it is actually very attainable, which is very promising, very encouraging, because it's actually practical things that you and I can do. And we're so fortunate because we have 4 wonderful speakers who, each of whom we consider to really be experts in those particular fields. And without further ado, I want to actually introduce you to our speaker, who's actually going to be speaking of one of the core strategies for managing anxiety. And the first core strategy that we want to actually take up is the whole aspect of reflective practice, introspection, and dialoguing, etc. And we have none other but our very beautiful and young yogi, Viwe Gwala, who is very close to the Brahma Kumaris. She's a BCom honors student, BCom honors graduate, pardon me, forgive me for saying student. And she has extensive experience in media, actually, media and communications, including television. So some of you might recognize her. And Viwe is also, interestingly, a mindset coach. So it'll be really lovely to hear from her. Her special stream of coaching is on actually addressing the mindset. And she specializes in wellness and human behavior. And so Viwe will take us through this core strategy of managing anxiety, which includes the more reflective and explorative practices. So, Viwe, over to you. Seems we might have lost Viwe. So, okay. I'm going to actually assist her in trying to log on. So maybe let me introduce you to another speaker. So long, pardon me for the little mix-up. I'd like to actually introduce Shanta Bihari. And Shanta Bihari is actually going to take us through the lifestyle change aspects and the values required for change in lifestyle that actually supports the management of stress and anxiety. And Shanta has actually been with the Brahmakumaris for a really long time. And she's my dear friend as well, and really someone that we consider to be, our own big sister in a way. Shanta is a holistic health practitioner, currently based in Johannesburg, and she has more than 2 decades of experience in holistic health, which includes skills from Ayurveda, reflexology, acu-detoxification, holistic massage. And she also, one of her passions that I know is that she hosts wellness retreats and really believes in maintaining a positive mindset. And this I love, she believes in good rest. So that's something really lovely. And so over to you, Shanta. You'll have about 6 or 7 minutes to share with us your tips and tricks. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to just assist Viwe in logging on. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Devendri, fellow panelists and out there. I would like to share a few thoughts on some of my favorite topics today, and the first one being healthy relationships. Recently, I went to a workshop, and it was called Celebration of Life. And a very lovely lady that actually had climbed the Kilimanjaro recently, her name is Chantal Cady, she introduced us to a very special concept called VUCA. It's V-U-C-A. In the African culture and tradition, they call it VUGA. And VUCA is about awakening and about an awareness. So just to tell you what it stands for, V is for virtues. A virtue, a trait that we all hold very dear to ourselves. U is for usefulness, always there to benefit others. C is for change. You're always able to adapt to changing circumstances. And we all know that we had to experience this in the COVID pandemic. And A is for affectionate to those that matter to us, all our brothers and sisters. I would like to take a look at all the hallmarks of a healthy relationship, which is the fundamental of life. It's what gives us our happiness and what gives us purpose in life. The most valuable asset that we ever could have is love. Where there's love, love softens everything. Love makes the impossible possible. It turns trauma into a lesson. Where there's love, everything seems to go right. You know, when somebody is in love, they just look so radiant and so wonderful. The world is like a better place for them. And when we receive love, we change so deeply inside that we know that when there's love for others, that the same can happen for them as well. Another aspect I'd like to take up is honesty and trust. Honesty brings out the love from others. People will always trust you when you are honest. They may not agree with you, but they will always trust your integrity. It is found today in businesses where the network is built on trust and integrity and honesty. Businesses are definitely more successful. Another aspect that I feel is of value to us is when we are peaceful and patient. To me, peace is a power. Silence is also a power. Both enable us to go through life with dignity and ease. We have to learn to have the ability when to speak and when to be quiet. And when we have patience is like a jewel of all our qualities. Where there's patience, you build relationships, even at work, you are open, and people find it more easy to engage with you. Another aspect that I like in a healthy relationship is respect. Respect is like water. Water cleanses everything that it touches. When you have respect, you help and satisfy the needs of every person, because the only intention you have is no other agenda, just totally unconditional, of bringing love to the other person. Another aspect in a healthy lifestyle is a healthy environment. Creating a healthy environment is very important to the well-being of a person. Every home should have a healthy space or a sacred space, where this is your space where you can unwind, de-stress, and relax. Some of the things that you can do is journaling. Journaling has found to be very, very essential, where when you are frustrated and you're angry, it's just lovely to journal and not to bottle up all those thoughts. Keeping a diary is also important. When you keep a diary, you find that you are more organized. And when you are more organized, you are able to manage your time better. In that way, that leads to you being less stressed. Also, adding things like crystals and chime bells to your sacred corner brings a lot of positive energy to your sacred space. Exercise and a time to be lighthearted and to play is also something that relieves tension. Be active with family and friends. It's very important to join maybe a dance class or to go to a hiking club. Being out in nature is good for you, and it helps you to relieve the stress, and also being in the outdoors away from the city and the city center. Some of the other forms of deep relaxation that you can indulge in, I'm not particularly fond of the gym, because I find like you're going there and you're really exerting yourself, you're really tired, you're just increasing your energy levels and you get depleted. I find like for me, things like yoga and Tai Chi work better. Yoga is an amazing exercise combined with meditation. It helps you with the deep breathing to relax greatly. And also it gives you a lot of endurance and strength. And Tai Chi, which is something that I practice once a week, actually we call it Qigong. It's taking the time to do the postures. It's the combination of the poses and the postures that help to calm the body, calm the mind. And in that way, you are more relaxed and you are actually more de-stressed. One of the other topics that I would like to take up, which is of great benefit and the greatest dilemma in modern day society, is nutrition. There are so many people that ask doctors, what should I eat and what should I not eat? There are so many diets in the market, the keto diet, the vegan diet, the wheat-free diet, the lack of protein diet, all these fancy diets. And people never know what to eat or even which takeaway to order from. There's so many different ones available. But all I'd like to say is that proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals are all important parts of nutrition. Carbohydrates are actually important for us, the so-called carbs, because what happens is we need carbs to burn the fat in the body. The protein is our building blocks, and we need the oils. So these are the very things that we actually take out of our diet. And what happens when this happens? It leads to a vicious cycle. You find that our metabolism gets out of sync, and instead of losing the weight, we actually put on more weight. And this becomes quite a dilemma for the young people that want to really look slim and trim. So let's look at some of the foods that we can have. Fruit is one of the things that's so important in our diet. The fruits are just nature's way of cooking them. It's natural sunshine that's cooking this fruit. So it becomes easily digestible, and it also becomes quite nutritious. I find today that a lot of people are making a lot of smoothies, and what happens is they are putting too much of fruit and too many different things in the smoothies. I would say rather than that is you can have your smoothie, but rather eat the fruit in a natural form. Other things that you can also add into your diet is fruit and seeds and nuts and all the healthy sprouts. These are all much more beneficial to you than to have cooked fruit. And then we come to a very important aspect of nutrition, and which is the vegetarian versus a non-vegetarian. So why non-vegetarian? Do you know that the tissues in the animals contain all the toxic material? When we consume these foods, this creates a lot of toxins in our body, and it creates a lot of stress for our organs like the kidney. And this is where we find that we end up with a lot of degenerative diseases. The system in the body cannot cope with all the high content of the protein and the fats. Fats leads to obesity, to diabetes, and to high blood pressure. Therefore, we need to look at our diet very seriously and eat natural foods and eat more balanced foods. You know, Hippocrates, which is the father of medicine, who we greatly revere, he once said, "Let food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be thy food." And in conclusion, I want to say that life is a celebration. Let us strive for excellence, and let us be the most outstanding human being that we possibly can be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shanta. That was really enlightening. And I think I'm going to incorporate smoothies into and more fruit into my diet also. It's a good reminder, actually. And apologies for previously where we lost Viwe for a bit, but I'm glad to say that she's back on. So I'm not going to go through the full introduction because I've already told you who to expect, but this is our wellness coach, Viwe. So I'm going to invite her to, yes, there you are. Hi, Viwe, lovely to see you. And so over to you. You're going to have about 6 or 7 minutes to share with us more about the explorative and the reflective practices that will help with anxiety and stress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devendri. And I'd like to first and foremost apologize to everyone. Technology got the best of me, but I'm really glad to be here today for this online occasion that we're having. So I'm Viwe, I'm a mindset coach, and really what that entails is just finding a way, a healthy way and holistic way of living a balanced life and understanding that you are not your mind, okay? You have a mind and you have the power to use your mind. And so I think with a lot that's happening around with us in this day and age, especially post-COVID, a lot of us are triggered. A lot of us are having triggering experiences. And it becomes difficult for us to cope, you know. Even prior COVID, you know, things were challenging, but we've never been challenged to this height of emotional instability and mental instability. And so we find ourselves in a lot of fear, and we find ourselves really afraid as to what is going to happen next in our livelihoods, in our jobs, in our workspaces, with our families. There really is a really heightened sense of fear when it comes to triggers. And I'm sure you've noticed that when you're triggered, you're in a situation where something is just not right, and your body's telling you something is not right. Hey, you know, we all have that situation where some coworker just winds us up the wrong way, and you're like, oh, you just pushed my buttons. You pushed my buttons. Or a family member. We are hearing and seeing of these occurrences at such dramatic pace and such a dramatic speed. And there's a lot of changes that are happening interpersonally in our environment, in our interactions, heightened levels of conflict, and a great deal of loss as well. A lot of us have lost our jobs. A lot of us have lost our livelihood. A lot of us have lost our sense of self, our identity, our financial security. A lot of us find ourselves in a very, very fearful place. And when we're triggered or when we experience situations or circumstances that trigger us, we go into fight or flight. The body cannot process heightened levels of stress and anxiety for long periods of time. And so our body tries to tell us that something is not right. There's an imbalance that's happening in the body. And oftentimes we're not aware of that. We just want to survive through the challenges. Hey, we just want to find a way to get away from the pain. And so I find that a lot of triggers are coming up for a lot of people in different scenarios. I mean, look, also people have lost a lot of loved ones, you know, and we're just trying to survive with everything that's happening post-COVID as well. I use COVID because it really heightened the sense of fear for a lot of us. And post-COVID, we're still trying to grapple and find ourselves and find our feet and actually make sense of what's happening in our minds. And our minds have taken a great deal of a toll. And we're all going through, a majority of us are going through a lot of emotional pain, a lot of emotional scars without having the proper tools to process everything that's happening in our lives. And how could we? How can we move on in such challenging times? But I just want to give everyone a sense of relief in saying that you are capable and courageous enough to be able to deal and go through those challenging times. It might seem like there is no hope. It might seem like your mental health has taken such a strain, but you're not alone. A lot of us, majority of us, are seeking ways and tools and an understanding of how we can actually get through this tumultuous time that is full of tumultuous challenges. And for the fact that you're here on this call today means that there is something in you that realizes the hope and the courage and the inner power and stability that you really do have, that is unearthing, that wants to be seen, that wants to be cultivated. And that's what mindset work is really all about. So I just want to encourage everyone that is going through a really, really tough time. I mean, we're all going through people are going through a lot. And the emotional pain and the strain can be too much to bear, but there are resources and there are ways in which to combat your own personal challenges, no matter how huge and insurmountable they may seem. I just want to talk about the different strategies that people can use. And of course, I won't be able to cover everything individually for everyone. I mean, that's what one-on-one coaching is there for mindset coaching. But I just want to give an overall sort of strategy and sort of relief for people to be able to apply in practical situations in their lives. As I've said that, you know, our livelihood has been threatened, our health has been threatened, our financial security, our mental security, our emotional stability, our well-being. And so I just want to reiterate and talk about a few strategies that we can incorporate in our daily lives practically that can release some tension and pain in our minds that have been heavily, heavily burdened over the last couple of years. The one thing and the practical thing that I find that works for a lot of people, especially in situations where you're triggered and you notice that this is a pattern in terms of triggering situations. So I'll make an example, and I made a sort of a simple one with a coworker, right? So there's often a lot of conflict in the workplace, especially with heightened fear, a sense of fear, and we are all going through our own challenges. And we spend a lot of time, even if it's online or in the office space, with people that are going through their own challenges as well, and trying to process them and deal with them in the best way that they can. And if you have an argument with a coworker, for whatever reason, and you just erupt, and this person really triggers you, or they were the last straw, you went through traffic, you got to work late, your boss is on your case, and this coworker triggers you, right? For an example, be aware that you are triggered. This might sound simple, but be aware. Awareness is 90% of the work done. A lot of us go into autopilot and into survival mode, and we just want to get through the day. But sometimes our triggers are just on a way for us to find a strategy to get to how we are feeling, all right? So the best way you can get into it is just take a deep breath. It's as simple as that. Sometimes all you need to do is to take a deep breath and look at the situation for what it is. You know, a lot of times we are in too deep in the situation and we can't think straight and we can't find a way to actually strategize and get through the situation. But being rooted in the present moment actually helps you come up with a creative solution, or you can just surrender. So what it does is being in the present moment helps you to be able to come up with a solution that will have a way forward with regards to what you're dealing with, or to surrender the situation so that it helps you get to the next step of what you're meant to do. Awareness comes with acceptance and acknowledgement. So sometimes you're not able to deal with the situation that you're dealing with at hand. If it's a heightened sense of fear, a heightened sense of emotion, the best thing you can do is, you might not have time at work, you might not have time during that time where you're going through what you're going through, but journaling is the best way for you to actually process and understand your emotions, unearth them. You know, journaling at the end of the day, no matter how cumbersome it might seem to a lot of people, journaling, writing out your feelings and understanding what they mean to you, because in that way you're also able to unpack your values. So whatever value system is integrated in the meaning of what the trigger came with, you're able to process it, because your mind works in steps, all right? So it helps to have a sequence and a pattern to the way that you think things through. And you might see a bigger picture after journaling and going through that experience in your mind, not only having it in your mind, but giving yourself the grace and the leverage to be able to work it through, because unprocessed emotions lead to stagnant, heavy energy that manifest in other areas of our lives. And we're already going through a lot, all right? So just to recap, something quickly that you can just do is to breathe, stabilize yourself in the present moment. When you're at home, journal as much as you can so that it's out of your system, out of your mindset, and that it opens your heart. That comes with the awareness, acknowledgement, and acceptance. And you'll see, don't believe me, put it into practice, see how it works. Cultivates inner presence. It cultivates your authenticity. It cultivates how you can manage conflict, because our challenges and problems might not go away, but we get to understand our own authentic power and our own authenticity through these challenges so that we can move on in our lives in a healthy, holistic manner. All right. I hope I've made sense. I've run out of time, I see, but I hope it's helped unearth and unpack the triggers that we are going through.
Thank you so much, Viwe, and it's really so powerful what you're bringing up, that triggers are actually a message to us, and it's all about taking that moment and giving ourselves a chance to actually look in and see what is this trigger actually saying to me. And I love what you mentioned about connecting to my value system, and also giving myself the time and space and opportunity to sort of unearth more about what's going on inside and processing it. I even like this whole aspect that you brought up about processing further, so that it doesn't manifest in some other way because it's unprocessed stuff that I haven't had a chance to deal with. So many, many beautiful tips and tricks. I wish we had more time to hear from you. Maybe we can organize to have a separate full session with each of our panelists, actually, so that we can get the full richness of what you shared. But you've added great value to our discussion today, and thanks very much. And now we're going to go on. Thanks, Viwe. now we're going to go on to our next speaker, who's Nazima Sumar. And Nazima is an occupational therapist who's been practicing for over 20 years as an OT, especially in the field of mental health care. And for the latter 10 years of her practice, it was focused in mental health care. And Nazima has a passion for the healing benefits of both creativity and spirituality. And, you know, those aspects definitely are very closely connected to mental health care. So warm welcome to you, Nazima. I can see you on screen and it's really lovely to see you. And I'm going to hand over to you now. And for the next 6 to 7 minutes, you can take us through the core strategy of managing stress and anxiety in terms of the more creative and expressive techniques that can help a person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devendra. Can everyone see my screen? Just a quick yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Much gratitude to Devendra and the Brahma Kumaris and for all of you for attending and having me here today. Throughout my presentation, I want you to just focus a little bit on the backgrounds. You'll see it will either be like the background on the left that's got just white with lines on it, or a colorful background like the one on the right. Basically, what this is a color by number sort of project. So you see there's little numbers in each little section, and this activity would have a matching color code where it will tell you number 1 equals this color, number 2 equals that color. And all you do is use those colors to fill in all the numbers to create a painting or a picture exactly like the one on the right. So my presentation has got several of those. So it's just something for you to pay attention to as we go along. So like Viwe very aptly said, anxiety is very rife these days. It's reaching unprecedented levels. For me, anxiety is a messiness in the mind, very much like the picture behind you. You can't make head or tail of it. You're asking what's going on here. You can't reason. It's a state of dysregulation emotionally. It might also be a result of unrepaired trauma, unsuccessful reparation, and therefore you kind of get stuck on that one issue, and you keep aligning it with everything else that's happening in your life. It's also characterized by fear, defense mechanisms like anger and blame, and it's a very primitive response to our surroundings, or rather it creates very primitive response to surroundings, including relationships, children, etc. It's basically a state of ungroundedness, a state void of mindfulness. But if we really want to, we can take that blank page just with numbers and we can actually make something of it. So we can take the anxiety and we can make something of it. And the tool or the bridge between the two is the power of your imagination. So like Albert Einstein once said, the power of imagination is the ultimate creative power. No doubt about that. So why do you need creative power to solve anxiety, to solve your daily human life problems? Because creativity builds on problem solving. It gives you the control. It gives you the agency to make a change. It's a figurative way of you making a change in your life, but it's the tool that gets your mind to that point of taking charge of what's happening around you. Imagination points to all we might yet discover and create. So you're going to be able to co-create a life that you want. You're going to be able to create literally a piece of work, an item of a painting or a knitted item or whatever it may be, but it gives you the power to decide what you want to create. Your imagination is the preview of your life's coming attractions, which means I can think positively about what I want to happen, or I can think negatively about what's going to happen. The choice is mine. But if we think positively, we'll be unblocked. Our creative channels will be unblocked, and we'll be able to see the light beyond what's happening now. Imagination gives you mindful power, control, support during difficult times, and an agency or a medium to create change. Creativity is the scaffolding to repairing the messiness of anxiety and trauma. So said another way, scaffolding is where you need scaffolding in order to get to the dirt on the top or to repaint the building. It gives you that support, that structure to resolve the issue. And creativity is that tool that takes you from a state of being anxiety, a state of messiness in your mind, to proper solution finding. Basically, it takes you from the picture before where I didn't know what was going on to a state of, wow, look what I've done. Okay, so in the brain, and this is very technical, I won't spend too much time on it, but development in the brain starts from what we call the brain stem. It's the infant brain, the reptilian brain, very much the brain that becomes dysregulated and reacts instinctively. So it's where your tantrums might stem from, it's where your blaming might stem from, etc. And as you develop, as the brain develops, you reach the cortex, which is the mammalian brain. It's called the new brain. It's where abstract thinking happens, mindfulness can happen, regulation of emotions can happen. And creative, when you're anxious, you're actually stuck at the bottom of this chain. You're in the brainstem level, and it's very difficult to move out of that. I'm sure you've all experienced that. But creativity is one of the tools that can help you shift or develop your thought or your brain function from primitive to abstract, mindful, regulated, and be able to act more reasonably. Once again, look at the background of the slide. And if you were able to take that background of your slide and use it in a considerable, you could create a picture like this. But anxiety may not allow you to do that. So it's a matter of allowing the creativity, forcing yourself to take that first step and that first color and follow that first instruction in order to have your brain develop and for you to be able to create a different outcome. Regulating the brain is the foundation of letting go of emotions that you don't want, emotions that are working negatively for you. You'll find that when you're in a state of dysregulation, it's very difficult to hold a conversation reasonably, to have adult level reasoning, and to problem solve constructively, to create win-win situations, because we're stuck in that dysregulated, blaming, whatever. But if you're using a creative activity to regulate yourself first, then you're able to move up and be able to relate to others around you in a more mature way. And then you're able to move a level up and be able to reason and problem solve for what's happening with you at the time. So this picture is the colored in version of the previous screen. Okay, note the screen at the back. It's also color by number, and I'll show you the outcome of it as we go along. So Deepak Chopra also says that the best use of imagination is creativity, whilst the worst use of imagination is anxiety. So anxiety is literally something that blocks your creativity. You're also using imagination, but you're using your imagination to think up all the negative things. So, on a creative level, you might say, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. I'll spoil it if I do it. It won't turn out nice. But also be mindful of how you're using this language, this negative self-talk in other areas of your life, even relationships, and it's creating a roadblock. Okay, so you're using your imagination to think up the negativities and it's blocking you. How could you unblock that? So you could use your imagination. If you look at this green little square, it's important for you to not, when you're doing a creative activity, it's more about the journey than the end product. For example, you see a pretty picture of a beautiful cake on Instagram, you want to copy the exact thing. It's already creating anxiety for you to create the same thing. Will it come out exactly the way it is on that Instagram picture? But really speaking, that's not the point. The point is for you're embarking on this journey of baking this beautiful cake or making a beautiful whatever you saw on Instagram. And your journey is going to be very different from everyone else's. And your outcome, your end product is going to be very different from everyone else's. And if you think that way, you're taking the whole anxiety of making it exactly as someone else's. And that may be very unrealistic. And you're making it your own journey. Something that you're going to play with, you're going to have fun with, instead of being focused on what that end product is. A lot of us procrastinate when it comes to creative because it may be unfamiliar, it may be a little bit daunting, but the important thing is to make a start. So make 10 minutes, take 10 minutes of your day and say, today for 10 minutes, I'm going to do my coloring in activity, or I'm going to do my knitting activity, whatever it may be. And we'll go through a few practical exercises a little bit later on. Important to also start small. So if you haven't been painting, Please don't go out and buy oil paint and say, I'm going to start making this huge size A0 oil painting. No, start with a small, you get a small little 10 by 10 centimeters something, buy a watercolor that's less forgiving, start in a small way and build your skills up. Okay, and be able to break the activity down into bite-sized chunks. I know we're often standing here and looking at the top of the uppermost rung of the ladder, and it looks like I'm never going to get there. But we need to also just take one step at a time in order to build that creative skill. Okay, so we need to, so what are practical ideas that you could use to get yourself started on a creative journey in order to help you ease the anxiety and stresses of daily life? The first very important question is for you to ask, what is calming for me? What is soothing for me? What is regulating for me? And everyone's answer may be different. There are hundreds of creative exercises that you could choose, but you want to choose something that's calming, soothing, and regulating for you, that's meaningful for you. You may want to incorporate into your creative activity a meaningful photo or a meaningful saying or something that reminds you of a time or a person. And that will always give you the edge in terms of being able to continue your activity, in terms of being able to take out the anxiety of your activity. Very important principle, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's very important for us to be able to play with our kids at their level, to the extent of following their lead and copying their movements and whatever they're saying and whatever they're doing, copy that, because that will take you back into your playful childhood flow, which we've lost. Society has so much, has just created us into machines that thinking on the left brain, focused on figures and numbers and responsibilities and all of that. And society hasn't nurtured our right brain, so much so that we become adults who've forgotten that we even have a creative side of our brain. So much so that we even don't encourage it in our children because we don't see the point anymore. But if you just go back a few steps and play with your kids the way they want to play, the way they are playing, you'll find that flow in you again. If you've got kids, that's a really great way to start, to connect with them, and to feel that flow for yourself again. Movement is a very important part of play and creativity. More than important, it's a very efficient way of play, creativity, of reducing stress. You may talk about a light brisk walk, you may talk about a hike, but I want to go a step further than that and say free dance. Put on some music, let your hair down. Like they say, dance like no one is watching. Just get into that zone of movement. Try to open up your posture. Often our posture gets closed and tight and we get smaller. Open up your posture, be bigger, see more, widen your horizons. And then, of course, a joyful posture is to have your arms up in that dancing, swinging. Do that. Also, force the smile out onto your face, and that will get your creativity flowing. Always use your senses when you're doing any creative activity. So really feel all your equipment, get the scent of all your equipment, taste or use your sounds to really bring all your senses into that creative activity and make it your world, even if it's just for a few moments. Water is very healing and very soothing and very regulating. So you may or may not have a pool, but it's a great way to splash. You can use a sprinkler. You can just splash about in a basin of water or a bath. Something that my mom really loves, and I think many people find benefit in, is an aqua aerobics class where you're immersed in the water, you doing all sorts of movements and dancing, and it's really uplifting and creative. And then your crafts and your coloring in. What I like to do is just donate, knit little squares, 20 by 20 centimeter squares, and donate them to organizations that collect these to make into blankets. So it's a meaningful activity, but knitting in itself has a lot of value. It's creative, it's repetitive, it reduces anxiety in a big way. You may want to try to experiment with a music instrument, not necessarily go for formal classes or buy expensive equipment, but just pick something up and try to do something with it, okay? Get your creativity going. Instead of spending huge amounts of money on gift bags and things like that, make your own gift wrap from potato printing or printing anything really using flowers from your garden. So also meaningful. You could use a little piece of stick and a little bit of anything dye like turmeric or beetroot or coffee or tea and write a little message on your gift wrap. That's a cute little way of getting it going. And of course, I've showed you the color by numbers. Look at the picture in the background with the dots. And the previous slide, I won't be able to go back to it, but that was the number aspect. And if you follow the numbers mindfully and you're able to complete, you'll come out with a picture like this. Beautiful activity to get you started in your creative journey. And like I said, there are lots of ways of making using natural things around your home, like coffee as a dye, and little twigs from your garden, etc. So reuse, recycle, upcycle, and this in itself gives you a great sense of creativity. That's it. I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome, Devenji. Much love and gratitude to you and your committee and everyone present, and wishing you all love, peace, unity, and goodness. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you so much, Nazima. It was such a brilliant presentation. And I mean, just looking at the colors and the pre and post samples, what it was before and what it can look like after, it makes it actually so tempting and appealing to do the same. And I really appreciate the examples of the activities that you suggested, because they're so within reach. You know, nothing that you said is actually out of reach, which is really lovely. So a message to all of you out there: dance like no one is looking and see what impact it has on you. And once again, thanks, Naz. Bye-bye. And now I'm going to actually invite our next speaker, who's going to actually speak about the attention centering practices that will help us to deal with stress and anxiety. And attention centering activities are the more quieter practices like meditation and breathing, visualization, and so forth. And we've got John Ndrito, who we all fondly know as Ndrito Bhai, here at the Brahma Kumaris. He actually has been practicing meditation since 1992 and been conducting a lot of research on the effects of consciousness on water and its applicability to sustainable farming, and also coordinates the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center in Soweto, here in South Africa. And John Ndrito is actually a professor of water engineering in the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Witwatersrand. And I know he recently did some very prestigious presentations and also worked in UN projects, and obviously has extensive knowledge and experience. And for me, the touching aspect is the way he has brought together both the secular and spiritual worlds and incorporated the practices of meditation and enhancing consciousness into actually the environment. And so I think it's going to be very, very special listening to you. And on a personal note, when our coordinating team that was designing this activity were talking about the strategies of managing anxiety, and obviously meditation and attention centering techniques is one of them, we were asking ourselves who best to actually represent a peaceful, stable, relaxed individual. And unanimously, all of us immediately said, it's Ndrito Bhai. So anyway, here you are, and warm welcome to you, and over to you. So let's hear more.
Thank you so much, Devendri. So I have 6 minutes, is it? 6 minutes to do this?
6 to 7 minutes, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you.
Opportunity to do meditation thereafter.
Okay. So thank you very much. I'd also thank you all the speakers, Shanta, Vive, and and Nazima. So I'm talking about meditation, something I've practiced for since for 30 years. And together with that, other techniques of that are more quiet, more silent. And I was looking up the three techniques, meditation, visualization, and mindfulness. And I was trying to find out what are the differences. Are there any differences? Because I needed to talk about the three of them and then talk a bit about breathing. And I thought I didn't find much of a difference between them. Sometimes you say mindfulness, meditation, visualization, meditation. And there's also meditation itself, which is what I have known it to be myself. But I think when you talk about, these techniques that are more quieter, it's much more connected with the awareness of the self. Because I think it's such an important thing to like connect with. When you say, I'm stressed, who is stressed? When I say, I want to become free from stress, who is it? And everything I do, whoever I am, I think, that particular attention or awareness of who I am and the experience of who I am, which comes through these techniques, which means turning my attention, turning my mind the other direction, because we are so much used to taking our attention outwards, doing things. What is important is to look the other way, because that is where the real centering happens. So self-awareness, the answer to this simple question, who am I? And I mean, it's obvious that I'm not just these bones, these muscles, this blood. I mean, I'm a being of energy, And there's someone who expresses this very nicely, saying, I'm a vibrational being. I'm that being of energy. There is that subtle being that I am, that I'm always acting in one way or another, but this conscious awareness that everything I do starts from this subtle entity that I am, this being that more or less doesn't have a shelf life. Because I know Nazima was talking about, working with your kids, so that you bring out that young energy once again. And that's what we are talking about. That energy is always you. It's always with you. Who you are is that subtle entity. You have no shelf life. And that entity is the one that connects with all the things that we look in life, all the things we yearn for in life. Because they say in life, I want to be peaceful, whether I'm doing the art, whether I'm at work, wherever I am. If we are connecting with love, with good feelings, that is when I feel life is okay. But the question is, okay, why is it the reality? That is when I'll be feeling okay. It's because that is my true nature. And when you think about peace or love or happiness or everything else, these are not things that we take from outside. These are things that are really our true nature. It's what this energy that I am, this being that I am, is made of. And I think meditation is simply coming to that awareness and experiencing that. And it is a very natural thing. And I think that is where we need to start. That's where we start. So when I think about myself, leave aside all the other labels, all the other responsibilities, everything else, and just come back to that awareness. I am this being of consciousness. And within me are all the resources that I actually need. And when I start from here, then I can then start being mindful, because I found mindfulness is described as, just being the observer, not attached, not influenced by anything, just seeing things as they are, being so much in the present. I know Via was talking about that, just being in the present, you're not influenced. But the simple way to do that, of course, is when you start everything from the inner self. So the one who is not influenced is the one that I know so much about, is the one that I am. So I'm coming from within. I have the energy of peace. I have the energy of love. I have truth. I have power. And I'm coming from that space and observing everything on the outside. And when I do that, then influence is much less because I'm centered within. Of course, it is a practice. So maybe easier said than done. One has to keep practicing this. And the more one does this effectively, the more it becomes a reality. And you find that things are happening around you, but you're just observing, you're not influenced. And not being influenced in this case means my stability, my inner peace remains with me, and my vision of what's happening around is still a benevolent one, is a positive one. So I'm not coming into anger, I'm not coming into stress, but I'm wanting to either just be silent or either in my mind say, okay, what is a positive way to deal with this? And it becomes a natural thing because the reality of human life is that we are givers. There's something about me that always loves to contribute positively, to contribute something to life on all levels. And I think it is the reality of life anyway. Nothing is there just for itself. Even I'm sitting on a chair, but I mean, if I was not there to sit on the chair, it would be of no use. That's the reality of everything. The sun is useful when we feel the warmth and the heat of the sun. So in the same way, myself, I'm also a giver. And when things happen on the outside, with that awareness that I'm this being who is benevolent, coming from within, then I'll be that observer who is mindful, who is detached, and yet I'm in my creative space. Creative, that potential for doing good, that awareness is always there. And therefore, the creativity that I'm working with is a positive one, not a negative one. And then what I think I'll be creating, I'll be wanting to create, I can say, is what I'm visualizing now. Because when I'm in a good space, then my creative energies, my thoughts, my imagination, as Nazima was talking about, will be out there. I'll be in that space where the abundance of my being is there and contributing to what needs to happen in a positive way. Okay, so that's a bit about meditation, mindfulness, visualization, and something about breathing. So it's not something I've practiced a lot, actually. Well, actually, I wouldn't say I've actually practiced breathing techniques. So I'm not sure that I'm qualified to talk much about this. So I read a bit about it, and I saw some information by some experts on this, about how breathing is such a useful thing. Deep breathing is something that calms one's emotions, centers one, but also alters the biochemistry of the body, which means when I breathe in deeply and breathing out deeply as well, breathing out the carbon dioxide, the body and the blood becomes more alkaline. There's more energy into, more oxygen into the brain. Therefore, one is more focused. The nervous system is more relaxed. So there'll be less stress. I also have more energy. I have a better immune system. And what happens is that I think if there's anyone, if one has issues with blood pressure, I think deep breathing also helps in those aspects. So it's quite a powerful thing. I was actually trying a bit of this yesterday. I found, it's quite effective, the few times I've done it. So that's also something that is quite useful for one to do. And one can, of course, connect that with meditation. So when you're starting with your meditation practice, you can start with a relaxation. Or when you are thinking, okay, let me take a break during the day. Because one of the very good things that we do is to say, okay, I have been active during the day. And maybe have been so busy doing this, getting my mind so involved in so many things, with so many people. And then I say, okay, when I want to take a break, what type of break do I want to take? So often you may say, oh, let me take some water, sip some water, have a drink of tea or coffee or something. But in addition to that, we usually say, take a break of the mind. Take a break of your mind. Let your mind also relax. And it's simply going within and reminding yourself, I'm this being of peace, this being of love, I'm this entity who is so wonderful. I'm the one who is the child of God. And everyone else is that, you know, just for a minute. But a good way to start that off could be, okay, let me do some deep breathing for half a minute or 1 minute, and then do that. After I meditate, or as I meditate, I'm also doing some deep breathing. So these are some of the things that we can do that would actually help us a lot. So how would I summarize this? So I would say, let me be self-aware, aware of who I am. So I'm a being of consciousness. Within me are such vast resources that I need to access, actually have. And based on that, there is some intention, something I can contribute to life, something that is there for me to do that no one else can do, because all of us are unique. So let me have some intention in my life. And then the third thing is, let me pay attention, which means let me ensure that my intention is being activated. And if it is based on the real self-awareness, that truth of who I am, then there is no way that the things on the outside are going to do much in the way of, or they are not going to influence me a lot, and I'll be stable, I'll be forthright, I'll be determined, and I'll get to what I want, although it may take time. But by using the inner resources, because that's where the foundation is, I will always have that energy and that determination to carry on with what I need to do. Okay, so thank you very much. So I think to conclude, we can have a bit of a practice of meditation. Yes, Sister Devendra?
Yes, thanks. Actually, you just read my thoughts. I was just coming back on for a short while to ask you if you would take us through a meditation practice.
Okay, so let's relax. So sit comfortably. Relax every part of my body. Sit as comfortable as I can and pay attention to my breath. So breathing in and out at my natural pace. So happy to be here at this time. But I just want to be with myself once again. The real self. That being that says, I am. The being that is alive. That being of conscious energy. In my mind, let me come back to that space. That space within where there's only peace. Beyond everything on the outside, like I am in deep sleep. With no contact with anything on the outside. The depth of my sleep, but I'm completely aware. Beyond everything else. And just awareness of this being of peace, being of silence. I become completely quiet. And in this space, I access this silent, subtle energy of my being, where all the resources of my life are, the resources that are always there with me. A space where no one and nothing else can come and alter, where the depth of positivity, the depth of benevolence, the depth of good feelings for myself, for everyone else, for the world is. I center myself here. I feel I'm here. And I'm this benevolent being, this positive being, this powerful being. And this energy radiates, relieving all the stresses, all the difficulties, all the challenges, and my life and that of everyone else gets back to the true natural state of being. Everyone is happy, everyone is peaceful, everyone is free. I visualize this as the future of myself, the future of everyone else, and the future of our planet. And I carry this as I prepare to move on with what I need to do for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the year, and for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. Om Shanti.
Thank you. That was such a soothing experience. We are already past 5 p.m., but before we close, I just want to know if there's anyone that has a question. Maybe you can type it out in the chat box because we want to save a bit of time. So if you can quickly type out your question in the chat box, and let's see if our panelists can help you further. Although I must say, as I'm keeping my eye on the chat box, waiting to see if there's any questions that pop up, that it's really been such a wealth of wisdom and, so much of beautiful variety that has been presented to us today. All about, improving our health and our lifestyle and how that can actually reduce anxiety, looking at our mindset and how that can be empowered to be able to face anxiety, creative expression, as well as this deep, quiet practice of meditation. So we really have received a lot of valuable input today. We have a question here about what is the best way to deal with fear? So we can have one of our speakers take up this question and give a very brief response. Is there anyone who would like to quickly share on the best way to deal with fear? Okay, I see.
If I can-
Yeah, yes, please go ahead and share your video as well.
My video.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think I have a video for this. But I just wanted to say that it's quite a broad question. I think the fear needs to be analyzed or assessed because fear can come from many different sources. And that will really give you the clue as to how to overcome it. Basically, overcoming a fear is not as simple as people make it out to be. It's not a matter of just, getting over it. You need support. You need what I referred to as scaffolding earlier. You need something that gives you that little backbone to try out the fear in a small way and increase that stimulus as you go along. So you recondition your mind, but it's really something that needs to be assessed and understood before you plan a program of overcoming the fear. I think that's what I'd like to say.
Thanks very much, Nas. And I see, Brother Dorito, you want to add to that?
Yes, maybe I don't have a specific answer to that, but I'm thinking, this thing of self-awareness leads one to get rid of many fears. When one starts identifying more with the start of being that I am, because that being is so free from the influences of the outsider. So when I identify myself as a soul, say the living being, then the other fears that come, from so many other things, you'll be they tend to be much less, especially when that it becomes a real experience that I'm this living light that is actually doesn't have a lifespan. It's something that goes beyond that. I'm just a being of consciousness. That's all I would mention for now.
Thank you very much. Thanks. That was two really powerful pieces of input towards that question.
If I can just add something, Devanji.
Yeah, sure.
I think expectation of outcome also has a lot to do with fear. So you're expecting that it needs to be a certain way and you might not get there, you might not be able to do it that way. And then of course, negative thinking. It just sort of feeds each other. So fear can feed your negative thoughts and your negative thoughts can in turn feed your fear. So like Brother John says, be self-aware of what you're saying to yourself in your mind and where you think the fear is coming from to be able to step by step undo it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, but Vanessa has just shared, one of our participants. Many thanks, beautiful soul family, for sharing all these valuable techniques. Such a joyful and hopeful, beautiful experience to be in your energy. Om Shanti. Vanessa, I actually think that we can all take that as our closing comment, because it was really so beautifully worded and a wonderful summary of this entire experience for just over an hour. And a special thank you once again for the expertise and all of the rich treasures that have been shared by our special speakers. And also much gratitude to all of you who've taken time out on this Saturday afternoon to join. And I'm really, really confident, actually, that in some way or the other, your life is going to be enriched and enhanced and empowered. And that experience of stress and anxiety is definitely going to be reduced because there's been such a variety of techniques that have been shared. And as you know, the program has been live streamed on YouTube. And so the recording of this program is going to be permanently available on YouTube. So for those of you who want a recap and want to make special note of all the very specific pieces of advice that our speakers have shared, you're most welcome to go back onto YouTube and to take a look at that. And you can also share the link to other friends and family who you know will definitely benefit from learning these coping strategies, because Viwe really spent time describing how it is so absolutely much needed in this day and age, especially considering all of the things that we're going through together. Okay, so Bev has also shared her gratitude, and in closing, I also just want to reiterate Vanessa and Bev's messages and say thanks to all, wishing you a pleasant evening and a wonderful weekend, and thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Devendri.
Thank you, Devendri.
Thanks, Naz. Thanks, Tirito. Bye. Thank you, Shanta.